welcome to Tales of Honor Podcast, a podcast dedicated to telling the true stories of every recipient of the Medal of Honor. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tales of Honor Podcast, the only podcast dedicated to telling the true stories of every Medal of Honor recipient. I'm your host, Christoph Ambrosch, and I want to thank you all for making this month the most listened to month for the podcast. Very much appreciated. I'm sure this means you are sharing with your friends and family, maybe the people who pick up your garbage and recycling, maybe your car salesman, and anybody else you happen to run into on the street. Maybe you got into a fender bender today, and the person who hit you because they ran a stop sign, you said, "Hey, I know this may seem like a weird time, but have you checked out Tales of Honor Podcast? Because you should. It's available everywhere that media is available. And if you didn't do that, well, I hope you don't get hit, because that would be terrible. But in case you did, make sure you share it. Thank you very much for making this month the most listened to month in the history of the podcast. I really hope that it continues to grow and reach more people and share these stories more and more. And moving right along, today's episode is the last one for the month, but we're going to continue the Korean War into next month as well. And it's episode number 224. And now, a tale of honor. Samuel was born on the 4th of August, 1926, in Madison, New Jersey. He was involved with sports in high school, and he graduated from the Newark Academy in 1945 before attending the U.S. Military Academy. Samuel graduated with the class of 1949 and got married to the daughter of the commander of the Navy Ammunition Depot in Lake Denmark, New Jersey. Commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Army, Samuel attended the officers' basic course at Fort Riley, Kansas in August of 1950, and then attended the infantry officers' basic and basic airborne courses at Fort Benning, Georgia. After being promoted to first lieutenant, he commanded a platoon of Company C, 5th Cavalry Regiment, 1st Cavalry Division, which was stationed in Japan after World War II, but transferred to Korea just weeks after the beginning of the Korean War. After being in country for 3 months, it was Samuel's actions during the UN offensive that would cost him his life and earn him the Medal of Honor. The citation reads, First Lieutenant Coursen distinguished himself by conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty in action. While Company C was attacking Hill 174 under heavy enemy small arms fire, his platoon received enemy fire from close range. The platoon returned the fire and continued to advance. During this phase, one of his men moved into a well-camouflaged emplacement which was thought to be unoccupied and was wounded by the enemy, who were hidden within the emplacement. Seeing the soldier in difficulty, he rushed to the man's aid and, without regard for his personal safety, engaged the enemy in hand-to-hand combat in an effort to protect his wounded comrade until he himself was killed. When his body was recovered after the battle, 7 enemy dead were found in the emplacement. As a result of First Lieutenant Coursen's violent struggle, several of the enemy's heads had been crushed with his rifle. His aggressive and intrepid actions saved the life of the wounded man, eliminated the main position of the enemy roadblock, and greatly inspired the men of his command. First Lieutenant Coursen's extraordinary heroism and intrepidity reflect the highest credit upon himself and are in keeping with the honored traditions of the military service. When Samuel died on the 12th of October, 1950, at the age of 24 years old, he was one of 30 West Point classmates that died in the Korean War, and many were platoon commanders. 9 months later, his Medal of Honor was presented to his 14-month-old son, Samuel Jr., by the Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman and General of the Army, Omar Bradley, in a ceremony at the Pentagon. 3 months later, in September of 1951, the Newark Academy renamed their athletic ground the Coursen Memorial Field in his honor, and in 1956, the U.S. Army christened a 172-foot passenger and vehicle ferry in his honor. The Lieutenant Samuel S. Coursen still operates today, taking passengers from Manhattan to Governor's Island. Samuel Street Coursen is buried in the United States Military Academy Post Cemetery in West Point, New York, Section 7, Row E, Grave 230. And that was a tale of honor. Thank you so much for listening to Tales of Honor Podcast. Please head on over to talesofhonorpodcast.com for more information, other ways to listen and support the podcast, and please be sure to leave a good rating and a nice review. If you have any questions or comments, you can send them to talesofhonorpodcast@gmail.com. And until next time, I'm Christoph Ambrosch. Thanks for listening.